Average Joe travels the California Inscape. A special Lumens Radiophonics presentation. To Bewitch a Thief. Story conceived and written by Penguin Pete. Featuring the vocal stylings of This Is Signal, with the Inscape theme by Ignore That Door.
Shh. That's sweet girl Samantha. Scoot along now and watch our visitor. We got a trap to spring. So I suppose you're wondering how I ended up crouched in a giant antique oak cabinet in the middle of the dustiest museum in Sacramento, California, staked overnight with just me and my familiar. This happens to be how I captured the internationally wanted and infamous cat burglar, Evita Pluto. She was one of those elite specialists that went after the large jewels and fine artwork, ancient treasures, and the like. This wasn't even one of Average Joe's detective agency cases, nor was it one of those shifty assignments our CIA friends like to pitch us every once in a while. This one was my own deal, one I really wouldn't have ventured on if I hadn't practically tripped over it. Fate is loosey-goosey that way. It can change in the flip of a tarot card. Given the way this caper turned out, I wish I'd never heard of it. In between cases at Joe's, I've taken to moonlighting for some spare change reading tarot fortunes for the local townies of Chatter Skull Falls. It's a great way to keep tabs on my underground gossip network. Some of my clients are from the well-heeled jet set, bringing me news of various covens, movements, sects, cults, and heavy players in Europe. To be honest, some of them just pay me to have someone to chat to for 15 minutes, and the cards are a parlor game for the idle rich to them. They're just looking for company. Might as well be me. Through this network, I learned there was a desire among high-profile occult archetypes to obtain the Eagle Ruby, which just happened to be making a stop on its museum tour nearby me. I also saw, like the rest of you, the continuing newspaper headlines detailing Miss Evita Pluto's heists worldwide. Joe showed me a photograph of her diamond heist last year at Malario d'Itsmera in France, and one detail jumped out at me. Her calling card. All high-profile aristocrat thieves leave one behind at the scene of the crime. Was a Japanese steel shuriken carved with a pentagram design. She was practically daring bad karma to catch up with her. Ever since we defeated that keeper on the Golden Goblin statue, which, by my sacred dagger's oath, yet today evades the greasy grasp of our arch-nemesis back in Season 2, you bet your bottom dollar I keep an eye out for the high-value museum pieces that have occult attention attached. And this was one such gem, the Eagle Ruby, would be on exhibit over Labor Day weekend, just down the highway from me. I decided to read her cards on my own, and my jaw dropped when I saw all the signs pointed to Miss Pluto's sticky mitts headed right for that ruby. Labor Day Midnight Special. I looked her up on the police station's Interpol files, while Chief Wankins munched on a stale jelly donut and ignored me. $10,000 bounty. Right then I said to myself, uh-huh. Even though I don't know beans about elite jewelry thief circles, I knew I couldn't pass this up. I just had to try this pinch. That pentagram design was just so blatant. You just don't flock to your occult involvement that openly, without something dark and malevolent coming to get you eventually. Might as well be me. So, nighttime coming. I had already introduced myself to the museum staff and explained as little as possible, but a phone call to a few of our law enforcement friends assured them that I knew what I was doing. I had made my preparations, assisted only by my black cat Samantha and my crystal ball. And wouldn't you know it, Miss Pluto showed up right at the peak of the full moon, her silhouette in her catskin tight outfit, vaulting over the barbed wire fence like a gymnast. She did the whole grappling hook thing, and then cut through a high-up window and dropped down over the jewel display glass dome on a rope. I bet she watches a lot of movies. Oh, no you don't. Freeze, I've got you covered. Hey, don't jump down yet.
What's the devil?
No, I'm not the devil. I'm just Anne. We both use fire, so it's easy to mix us up.
You almost killed me. Ah, my ankle. I landed on it wrong. Who uses a flamethrower in a museum? That isn't standard Pinkerton equipment.
It's not a flamethrower, and I'm not exactly a guard. I'm an interested party on the price on your head. Hey, keep sitting. With that backflip you tried coming off your rope and landing in the dark, I am not surprised you twisted your ankle.
I give up. I give up. It's okay. You got me.
Let me see. Ooh, yeah, that looks bad. We'll get you some help presently. Just sit tight. I can mix up a dressing for that out of my apothecary.
Who the hell are you? How did you know I'd come here tonight?
I'm a student and practitioner of the occult arts, and I saw you coming in my crystal ball. That and your tarot layout pulled 7 swords, plus 3 wands reversed, tells of a huge fortune missing nearby me. By the way, you want this ruby so bad? Here, catch. What? You don't like my replica? I worked on it for hours. Oh, and of course you've met my black cat, Samantha. She's circled the room a couple of times by now. So if you try to leave, you'll be jinxed. Bad luck to cross their paths, you know.
Okay, you crazy dame. You got the real ruby stashed somewhere, huh? You just scared the vinegar out of me. Just run me in. I know my rights.
Well, since you're injured, I see no reason to insist on cuffing you from behind. You seem to take getting arrested well.
Your government will extradite me back to France. I'll sit for a bit. Then one of my patrons will show up with a suitcase full of money, arrange for my release, and I'll be back out. I get a break and needed one anyway.
Well, la-di-da. Once I collect that bounty on your head, we'll all be smelling like roses. On the off chance, I don't suppose you left the phone line intact?
No, I cut all the wires before I came in.
Well, it looks like I'll have to carry you out of here if you can hang on and limp. Here, this will sting a bit, but it's a salve to help ease the pain. Good old witch hazel.
Ah, so you're like a witch. You know what the red ruby does?
Yes, I do. As you probably know, the literature only says that it opens. In the right hands, it's open sesame for nearly any kind of luck. Beyond that, I shall not say, lest I tip you off to things you shouldn't know. Little tip for you, sister. Sometimes when an occult secret is guarded by a powerful lock, that lock is there to protect you.
It's not me who wants it. It's this guy who collects artifacts. His name is something funny, but his first name is Raxid.
Yep, just what I suspected. So he hired you?
Oui, but I never met him. Some other guy in Paris that works for him met with me. Over here, I stayed with a woman who works for him too. She's a leader of Witch Coven, and her name is Zelda.
Indeed. Did she mention me?
No, but she says she can watch me pull this job through the mirrors, all over the museum.
Nice try, but the crystal ball sees all. I know you're working alone. Wait, your ankle. That's not a fresh scar. What? Oh, I have to admit the girl got me good. All of a sudden, she was off the floor, reached into the cabinet that I'd hidden in, and snagged the eagle ruby. Then her handcuffs clattered to the floor, because of course she used it to open her handcuffs. Then she took off running. She had been faking her injury, passing off an old scar for a fresh one, and it was just dark enough in here that I fell for it. Well, I was on my feet and running after her as she ran to the front museum doors, locked of course, but she was raising the eagle ruby in front of her as she ran towards them. Oh no. Don't try to use it! It's dangerous! You've crossed a black cat's path! She was quite far away from me, but the explosion of blood and light in the museum lobby told me I was better off not being closer. As the literature says about the poorly understood properties of the eagle ruby, it opens. She had pointed it the wrong way. It opened her. Avita Pluto wasn't just cut, she was butchered. Every part separated. One of the scholars speaking on the subject of the ruby's effect on the human figure describes it as a complete anatomical instructive autopsy performed by 1,000,000 ghost scalpels working from the inside out. Her blood dripped from the ceiling. I gagged and turned away. Now, how to clean up this mess? I'd arranged for the police to check in on me on regular intervals, one of which was approaching. After fretting how to handle this, I fetched a gasoline can from my car and sprinkled it around the scene. Then I added a little goop I mixed up from my apothecary that was supposed to resemble blast residue. From there, the Sacramento police entered the scene. I convinced them our subject carried a suicide bomb just in case she was ever caught. What people don't know won't hurt them. But what of her reward? I was a little too sickly to look forward to the money now. But I could prove her identity, handing the investigators a stack of pentagram-etched zircons that I'd retrieved from her gear. I walked out of there carrying my own bag, which they never searched. And so the museum exhibitors don't know that they proudly display my carefully carved and sanded replica of the eagle ruby to this day. Later, I hexed the ruby with a cancellation spell, which will at least slow down anyone trying to use it, and transported it to Lucretia's for safekeeping. How much of what Avita told me was true in our brief encounter? Neither one of us had completely trusted the other. In a way, we weren't so different. She was just one more person who played with the occult fire and got burned. The locks are almost always there to protect you. The reward money would go to research now, because I just found out that Zelda, the understudy to Raxid, has a coven. That gives me 13 names to look up and keep tabs on, not just one. Maybe I won't need to worry about all of them. Who knows? Maybe the next time it'll be Zelda herself who falls into my lap. Fate is loosey-goosey that way.